Can we talk about the Fed and the money printing? Because I mean, I might be the hammer that everything looks like a nail to, but it does seem to me like things really started to go off the rails in 1913
Agreed.
with the inception of the Federal Reserve, and then accelerated like crazy after 1971, going off the gold standard. That when you give a central government the power to print money, especially when it's not backed by gold, they can literally just print as much money as they want. It's not that big of a surprise that we saw all these three-letter agencies started to grow ridiculously fast, right? And we saw a disproportionate shift in the growth of federal, state, or central state power and a decrease in local state power. So in short, what would I say? The money printer is a centralizing force on the state. And that is almost synonymous with the destruction of the US, because the US was founded as a decentralized constitutional republic, right? Powerful local states, weak local central government. And the money printer flips that on its head. Now, talking about this 10 years ago, people didn't give a shit, right? They didn't know the term fiat currency.
Right.
Maybe 15 years ago, I guess I should say. Bitcoin's 15 years old now.
Right.
After Bitcoin and after all the money printing and after the 2008 and 2020 and all these financial calamities we've had, it's starting to become a topic that people talk a little bit more about. We even have Thomas Massey, who's now introducing legislation to, I think, abolish the Federal Reserve.
Mm-hmm.
What are your views on the role of money printing, central banking, and all of this mess that we find ourselves in? Is there a political solution to this problem, a la what Massey is doing? If not, what other solutions are available?
Yeah, I mean, well, just to go to kind of the premise of the question, I completely agree with your analysis that it is really the source of all that ails. Mm-hmm. I mean, from 1913, we go from one of the smallest federal governments for the land mass in particular, mm-hmm. and the wealth that we were producing, to the largest government in human history. And like that happens pretty rapidly. Mm-hmm. About 100 years, we become the biggest government ever.
Yeah.
We also become the largest military ever and probably the most successful empire ever. But all empires end, and they end in the same fashion usually, that it is either you lose in a catastrophic war or you lose because your currency dies.
Yeah.
And it seems as if we are on the precipice of both, which is super concerning, because the difference is that there wasn't nuclear weaponry with prior empire declines, whereas this one, there's lots of nations that don't like us, and they got nukes, and we've got nukes, and we're all pointed at each other, and we're in fact in a proxy war with one of them right now, if not two of them. So it's super duper dangerous. Sorry, I keep taking this into dark territories, but I mean,
that's what it is.
It's just true. So as far as political solutions to the money printing issue, there's really no popular support for doing what needs to be done. Trump, I like Trump a lot more than I do the current regime, but I'm not a sycophant by any stretch of the imagination. What he did in his big, beautiful bill, the $4 or $5 trillion that they spent in 2020 that he bragged about. Look, there is no fiscal sanity coming from either side of the aisle.
Right.
And if there was a figure that has enough kind of just diehard supporters that whatever he said would probably end up getting enough support to happen, it would be Donald Trump. He doesn't seem to understand the dire nature of our financial circumstances.
Yeah.
He has made his money by borrowing and and spending in that fashion, and I think that he thinks you can do that as a country too, and he's not right. Particularly because we don't borrow and then put into any sort of tangible assets. We just put it into bombs and then we blow them up. So it's like, exactly. That's not getting us anywhere. So, I mean, in terms of political solutions, no, I think that it's a personal solution. Like you can opt out.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people that understand what's going on have and are continuing to do so. So I think that's the answer. Unfortunately, I genuinely don't think that people are going to demand the change that's necessary until the inflationary pressures, which are already significant, get far, far worse.
Yeah. When you say opt out, you mean going into putting your purchasing power in gold or Bitcoin and taking it out of the system?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree. And that the beauty of that is like you can not only protect yourself, but it's also an act that takes energy out of that machine.
True.
you're like voting against the printing of money and the dropping of bombs, for instance, just by saying, you know what, you can do that, but you're not going to do that to my purchasing power, right? You're not going to dilute me to bomb other people. Like, fuck that.
Yeah, it's a great act of protest.
Yeah, boycotting, basically boycotting the state in a way. But man, how do we? Like, that is one of the most effective things we can do. Probably the most effective thing we can do, next to just
on
conversation
an individual level,
and education. Yeah. Yet so few people understand that. It's not that complicated. I mean, we just said it in 2 sentences. So, like, what's the problem? Was it just that money and finance is just this abstract domain that people don't have their heads around? Like, how do we get people to see the economic picture for what it is?
Yeah, look, I mean, let's just be honest. Most people aren't libertarians. Most people are not going to read Austrian economics. You know, they're not going to go down, this road. And in their defense, they have spent their entire childhood being told that we're wrong, that Keynesianism is actually proper and good, and if not, then modern monetary theory is the is the pathway forward. So I don't think you can reach a lot of these people, and like I've just kind of accepted that at this point. Like I think that in fact I'm very confident that they're wrong, and I know that we will all suffer as a consequence of their wrongheadedness. However, you have so many people that are telling them that they're right and that we're idiots that it's like, all right, what else can I do? You know, like I can try and convince them, but for the most part, it's like there's nobody home.
Dude, that one's such a pernicious problem because you go back to public schooling, actually.
Exactly. Like,
people have been actually conditioned to believe that this is the truth of finance economics. And then when you, like, this is one of the most bitter parts of the Bitcoin orange pill. You pull back the veil on Keynesian economics and you're like, what? This is all pseudoscientific bullshit to justify the money printing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yet it's taught in all universities.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And so everyone's plugged into this matrix, basically, unless, there's like when I say a handful, literally a handful, I think less than 5 universities in the world that are seriously teaching Austrian economics. Now, obviously the game has changed with the internet and all of that, but
yeah, but see, here's the thing. When it comes to like high level educational topics, which despite the fact that finance is not really looked at in that way, it ought to be. I mean, because it's one of the most important things. But when you're going to these schools, these colleges, these universities, very high level universities to learn about economics, like you're going to come away totally convinced that you have to be being told the right thing.
Yeah.
Like if you go to NYU or whatever, and like you're telling me that the people at the highest levels of American academia are wrong. Like I'm just trying to like steel man the opposition here. Like for a young person who knows no better,
right? Of course,
and they go to this high end college and they pay $250,000 to go there, and then we come out of here and we're just like, everything you think is wrong, and they're like, fuck you. So I understand the psychology.
With a camera and a book, and we're like, oh yeah, you're the one that's right compared to these.
Exactly.
I can commend that as well, but I do think that whole, what do we call this, like worshiping of the expert or something, that was really challenged during COVID.
It should have been.
Yeah, thankfully. But
yeah, this is technocracy. I mean, there's financial technocracy too.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.